on this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.
We are going to introduce a new segment not because of the haters, but we're just, testing some things out. As you've probably noticed, we're doing more and more clips, trying to provide you some short form content as well. So in the kind of spirit of that, we're going to try this new segment called Quick Hits.
Quick Hits. And let's...
All right, that's probably about enough time for me to stick a music intro in there later. So, first off, in pop culture, Eternals. I went to go see it in IMAX. I booked the tickets in IMAX accidentally. I was disappointed in the first place because I knew it was going to be loud, just so loud. And it wasn't that bad in terms of the loudness, but the real reason I was disappointed is because normally that theater, all the other theaters at that movie, Cineplex, I guess is what they call it, have the seats that recline, and they're big and they're comfortable, and the IMAX seats are like, nah, you're paying $20 some odd a ticket and you don't get to be comfortable. At least not that comfortable. They're not like uncomfortable seats, but when you go in, expecting honestly though, probably a good thing that I wasn't in the recliner, because I would have fallen asleep about 10 minutes into that movie.
I was waiting to ask you, was the movie at least good?
No, it was terrible. Visually there were moments that were neat, but I called it 5 minutes into it. I was like, oh no, there you go. That's who did it. And it just, it was another one of those films where I feel like they probably had another, it was like 2.5 hours long.
Good
but
Lord.
They probably had another hour and a half of stuff that ended up on the cutting room floor because they couldn't, you can't make a 4-hour movie. Like, nobody's actually, unless it's Bollywood. You gotta have a lot of dance scenes, which, to be fair, there was a Bollywood dance scene in this film. So for all, they could have done an intermission. Like, we could have been probably fine with that. But did I really want to see another hour and a half of that movie? Probably not. Like, I just don't. Right. I did not feel like it made sense. A lot of jumping around. I'm trying not. I'm trying to be. Yeah, like we talked about earlier. If I don't want to just be like, the movie sucks. Why did it suck, Chris? Because it sucks. I'm trying to be honest, but I'm also trying to provide it as like not that the director or Kevin Feige is gonna watch this and be like, oh, that's really good points, guys. I guess I should make my movies better.
But you're part of the demographic, so not to cut you off, but Everything Awesome, which is a YouTube channel I follow, and they do a lot of great reviews about superhero movies. He actually said if he gave his honest opinion of that movie, and he said it's not going to be what people are expecting. So, and maybe I'll share that link with you. Yep. But it was pretty insightful. It's kind of one of those. It could be considered an artsy movie, but
and that's I get that, honestly. You get that sense watching it that it's right. It's designed to be more of an artistic film, but
you don't want that in your superhero movie, right?
And that's not even necessarily true. I just don't think it was done well. Even their attempts to do that, I just think it's one thing when you want to say I want to make it look really pretty. Yeah, okay. Honestly, shouldn't every director's goal be that their film looks really good? But ultimately, the story is what's going to kind of tie everything together more so. And I think it just comes back to, character motivation.
We've talked about this a lot. There's a lot of things that Marvel, for this, and just superhero movies in general, they're changing for the sake of changing them. And it probably, when you introduce a team like the Eternals, not everybody knows them.
Yeah. I know nothing about the Eternals going into this. I think we talked on a previous podcast episode about, this is not a quick hit. This is supposed to be much quicker than this, but that's okay. But yeah, it just like I went into it with not high expectations, but I was hopeful. You know, like I'd heard all of the bad, Rotten Tomatoes and all the bad reviews. I didn't read any of them, but I heard all of the bad press that it had gotten. And I was just like, it's probably, like Shang-Chi got some bad press, and I really enjoyed that one. So I was like, okay, well maybe like this will be like that. And again, like there were moments that were kind of cool, but it fell incredibly flat. Like I walked out and I was like to Christy, I was like, what did you think? And she was like, that was a waste of time. And I'm like, okay, good. Like I didn't want to be the negative one right off the bat, but yeah, that movie sucked. It just, I don't know.
It's okay. That's your summary.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. Like it sucked. That's where I'm at.
That was pretty quick.
Yeah.
So if I see one more article that says get rid of Chrome, I think I might just lose my mind.
And what's funny is that I get it in my Google News feed all the time.
Yeah, every third article is like, millions of users should abandon Chrome right now. For what?
See, I think Google knows that like users will ultimately, resist and rebel and be like, don't tell me to get rid of Chrome. I'm going to keep it just because there's all these articles out here telling me to get rid of it.
Yeah, my device, my choice, right? They haven't proven a good enough case to make that true for me. And most mainstream and some up and coming sites, they're optimized for Chrome. So until Safari becomes a better browser in that aspect, and if Microsoft Edge stops trying to turn the Chromium code base into Internet Explorer, like, I'm good. I'm just gonna stick with. And I had a bad experience with Firefox like 8 years ago. I was like, yeah, I'll hard pass. So
yeah, I was a Firefox user for a long time. I was generally a Mozilla fan, Thunderbird, and I ran into the issue where it was taking up a huge amount of my processing power just to run Firefox versus what other programs like Chrome would take up. And at the time, I was doing things like heavy Excel processing, even video editing and sound editing, and so I couldn't have my my internet browser taking up half of my CPU power or my active memory. And so that was when I think I switched to Chrome. And I do think it's one of those things where it seems like Google in a lot of ways gets a pass as opposed to like Facebook and some of these other companies when it comes to data privacy and how they're using it, because Google's the one who kind of pioneered a lot of that and was like, come use our search browser and we'll show you targeted ads based on that, and then obviously expanded from there. But I think Google also hasn't had like massive issues with data privacy in terms of like people getting access to it, hacks and data breaches and those sorts, and so that's probably part of the reason. But I don't know, at this point the main reason I'm sticking with Chrome is because it makes it super easy for me to move from one device to another. And I have 3 devices that I'm actively using on a daily basis, minimum. And so it's like, and I can log into any device in Chrome and have all of my logins, all of my bookmarks, everything is saved, the moment that I sync the browser. So it's too easy and too convenient not to be usable. And like you said, there's nothing else out there that's really competition at this point.
Yeah. So next.
So you sent me a video this week. It might have been yesterday. It was like top 10 influencers exposed for living fake lives. And it made me happy in a sense that I'm like, yeah, like I think we should be calling out this stuff. But it also kind of made me sad in the sense that these people probably still have a fairly strong, social media following, in spite of the fact that people have now been like proving that they don't actually live these lives. Or to the fact, like, there was that one girl where it was like she took the picture in business class, and then somebody on the flight recognized her back in coach and took a picture, and her fans were like, well, that's just really smart, like that's pretending like you're in business class, but it's being frugal. And I'm like, okay, I guess, I don't know.
It just makes me feel like it's like a cognitive like disassociation to like your own world, and you're trying to really live through somebody else's life, and it just I don't support that. It's just the way it is, And that channel, IO Overload, good lord, it's like a rabbit hole for me.
It is. I mean, like, it's just one top 10 video, but it's, 3 top 10 videos usually, like all sandwiched together into one single video, and then you're like, oh, here's 10, actors that had really bad interviews. Here's, like 10 times that, characters were written off shows because of off-screen behavior. Like, those are the videos that I ultimately ended up watching because I'm a pop culture whore. And
I just don't. I really don't care. So
you're lucky.
Yeah, but I find the attention to detail.
Their head.
Yeah. That's what we're saying now. I just find it really interesting that all these people, like these quote unquote followers, are just so intrigued with these people's lives. I'm like, I don't even care yet. I really don't care.
Fair. I'm in the same boat. Like I couldn't care less at this point. So.
All I've got now with sports, let me give I didn't put this in here, but I want to say it. The Broncos won. I'm excited.
I had to wake him up from a nap so
yeah.
he could tune in and watch the rest of the game live.
But I'm still not a Teddy Bridgewater fan.
No, I understand that.
They won the game through defense. They won the game through their run game. It wasn't because of Bridgewater. Nothing against him. He's just not our quarterback. But I'm super excited about the World Cup and college basketball because I've got nothing else left. Although the Broncos may go to the playoffs, but I want to see the Knicks, hopefully, possibly not botch it, but kind of skeptical. And my feelings are hurt because I watched the Denver defense play extremely well without Von Miller. But I'm glad he's happy in LA.
Well, I mean, I heard, and this is obviously just like speculation, I think, more than anything, but that the Denver defense was like, we got to show up and show out because this is the first game without Von Miller, and we got to prove that we're still a good defense and that we're not just one player. I mean, and they certainly played like that.
It was 30-0 until Fox decided that they wanted to show a more competitive game, and without the extent of the fans, which kind of pissed me off. But
yeah, I hate it when they do that crap.
Yeah, but then they gave up 16 points. But albeit hopefully in 2022, Sunday Ticket goes free market, and if you're listening to NFL, I will pay for free, like Sunday Ticket. I will not pay for DirecTV. It's just not worth it to me.
Yeah, they need to get out of that being the exclusive provider. But
right.
I don't know what the contract looks like, so I have no idea what the actual likelihood of that is.
it expires in 2022, so we'll see.
Nice, that would be fantastic. I mean, the NFL is a bunch of dummies if they don't take advantage of that. Honestly.
Right.
Speaking of bunch of dummies, or at least a dummy, Aaron, I think I'm better than everybody else, Rodgers. Really, this isn't about, to me, this isn't about whether or not he's vaccinated. And I think, that's a big part of the argument is, people are like, well, I've never seen people get so upset about it, whether or not he got a shot. I don't care whether or not he got the shot. It just seems like dude pretended like he got the shot, got cute with his words, got caught now that he got COVID, and wants to blame everybody else and start making excuses. And I've never liked Aaron Rodgers.
He's in my top 10 quarterbacks. I feel guilty.
No, I mean, he is in my top 10 quarterbacks too, I think. But, well, he was. And I mean, honestly, like, this doesn't change anything about how he plays on the field, right? But it's just such a, like, I'm above the rules and I'm above everybody else type of attitude. And it's like, because I'm smarter than everybody. I've done all this research, but I won't tell you how I protected myself. That's personal. Even though, I claim that I found, a way to immunize people from COVID without having to take a vaccine. Like, that seems like something that a lot of people might be interested in.
So for me, the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, it goes to your points 2 and 4. 1, he got cute with his words, and so that was point 2. And point 4, point 4, he's blaming everybody else, right? And then it circles back to, at the end of the day, I really don't care. And I think it's a misrepresentation of the situation to make it like his failure to do something that important. Because I really don't care. It's like I at the end of the day, if his team says you can't play, they're protecting that team. Aaron Rodgers isn't paying my mortgage. Like, and I get it. There's a part of me that is frustrated. But then the reason says, yeah, but do you really care? Like, he's a POS for being that guy.
I mean, again, like, for me, what it really boils down to is I get this wonderful feeling of vindication that I was right. He's always been a weird, arrogant asshole. And so I get to feel good about that and, move on. And that's it.
His PR agent should have just said, hey, let it blow over.
I mean, yeah, I think, like, that's the other thing is, essentially what it really is that he didn't want to deal with it in the preseason. Like, he didn't want to deal with all the questions or, any attention around whether or not he was vaccinated or the fact that he wasn't getting the vaccine. And so he did what he did. And I mean, yeah, like, if he'd have just said, no, I'm not getting vaccinated, I spend a lot of time thinking about what goes into my body, and I have some reasons that I don't feel comfortable with this, but I'm going to follow protocols. And I think that's the other thing is because he wasn't following protocols, wearing a mask on the sidelines during preseason, wearing a mask during the report. And then he wants to be like, well, it doesn't matter because they're all vaccinated and vaccinated people can't get COVID, supposedly. Like, he wants to start playing scientist or doctor, and it's like, dude, just go throw the freaking football.
But,
yeah, right? Like, the less I know about what is going on.
Yeah, let's leave it, because then it becomes the shut up and dribble argument, right? How about we just say, let the team manage it?
I guess that's a fair point.
Like, look, let the team manage that. I'm going to keep hands off and we'll move on. So,
to hear the rest, tune into this week's episode of The Chris and Andre Show.